From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Aylia Batool. Muslim leaders celebrate Zohran Mamdani's historic New York City primary win. This and more in our today's show. Meanwhile, after winning his party's nomination, Zohran Mamdani is a step closer to possibly becoming New York City's first Muslim mayor. The 33-year-old Ugandan-born candidate stunned political elites on Tuesday by defeating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary. Cuomo had support from a super PAC funded by billionaires and corporations. Mamdani ran a grassroots campaign focused on affordable living and justice for Palestinians. His stand won strong backing from Muslim voters across the city. Disillusioned by Mayor Eric Adams, who leaders say ignored the Muslim community after being elected with 90% of their vote, more than a dozen Muslim groups united behind Mamdani. They held forums in mosques, vetted candidates, and chose him. From Bangladeshis to Yemenis, Pakistanis to West Africans, Muslims mobilized thousands of voters. Volunteers ran phone banks, sent texts, and turned out voters. Supporters say Mamdani did not just represent Muslims, he stood for justice. But now they are bracing for attacks. Right-wing voices have already begun smearing him. Conservative social media personality Laura Loomer wrote on social media that Muslims will start committing jihad all over New York. Muslim leaders say the real test comes in November in New York City's general elections for mayor. Mamdani's primary win is expected to become official after the ranked choice tally next week. In related news, Zohran Mamdani has called his victory in the Democratic primary for mayor of New York City a moment of history made by the people. In his victory speech yesterday, Mamdani said his campaign was never about one man, but a collective movement. Muslim community leaders say his win reflects years of grassroots work. Founding president of the Muslim Community Forum and New York City community organizer Johaib Chaudhry told Muslim Network TV that Mamdani's campaign has proven that principled leadership backed by community power can change the course of New York City. Abdul Aziz Boyan of New York's Hillside Islamic Center also praised grassroots efforts. He said the momentum began in February and culminated in a historic May 29th endorsement. Retired New York Police Department officer Shamsul Haq said he also mobilized the Bangladeshi community to vote. Armin Chaudhry of Muslim Ummah of North America said his group organized 500 volunteers for phone banking. Khalid Al-Amri, an advocate for the American Yemeni community, said more than 90% supported Mamdani not because he is a Muslim, but because he stood by Palestine. Shabir Ahmed of the Muslim Voters Project said it was the first Pakistani organization to endorse Mamdani in December. Ibrahim Ahmed, a public relations officer with 10,000 databases of West Africans, mostly Ghanaians, said Mamdani made them feel welcomed. But Syed Adnan Bukhari, an organizer with Muslim Community Forum, is worried that all the billionaires will try to defeat Mamdani in November's general elections. He said the community now needs to put its efforts into that contest. An initial intelligence report reveals that recent American airstrikes failed to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. CNN reports the Defense Intelligence Agency found that key elements of Iran's nuclear program at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan remain largely intact. The strikes, which followed similar Israeli strikes since June 13th, may have delayed progress by only a few months. This contrasts sharply with President Donald Trump's claims that the operation destroyed Iran's nuclear capacity. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth echoed that view, insisting the bombs buried Iran's nuclear ambitions under rubble. Trump amplified his statement on his social media. However, sources told media outlets that Iran's enriched uranium and centrifuges have survived. The White House dismissed the intelligence leak, calling it false and unauthorized. Analysts say the disagreement raises questions about the true impact of the strikes and Washington's messaging on Iran's nuclear threat. Iran's parliament is pushing to sever ties with the United Nations nuclear watchdog. A key committee approved a bill to suspend all cooperations with the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA. Lawmakers say ties will resume only once the agency guarantees full protection of Iran's nuclear sites. Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf accuses the IAEA of politicizing its role and failing to honor its commitments. He insists Iran's nuclear program remains peaceful. The move comes after Israel's airstrikes on Iranian nuclear and military sites earlier this month. The United States later bombed 3 Iranian nuclear locations. Tensions spiked for nearly 2 weeks, raising fears of regional war. But a ceasefire was declared Monday by President Donald Trump, ending 12 days of tit-for-tat strikes between Iran and Israel. Iran now demands security assurances before re-engaging with international nuclear oversight. Iran's top Quds force commander, Brigadier General Ismael Ghani, appeared in public Tuesday in Tehran, days after reports claimed he was killed in an Israeli strike. State-run media showed Ghani celebrating what Iran called its victory over Israel following a 12-day conflict. He was warmly welcomed by cheering crowds. Earlier, the New York Times had reported that Ghani may have been killed in Israeli attacks targeting military and nuclear facilities inside Iran. The Department of Homeland Security has arrested 11 Iranian nationals living illegally in the country. Among them is Ribvar Karimi, allegedly a sniper for the Iranian army, and Mehran Makari Sahili, who claimed ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Lebanese Hezbollah. Officials say 7 of the detainees have past criminal convictions, including drug offenses and document forgery. One woman, Lynette Vartanian, was arrested after allegedly threatening to shoot officers trying to detain another Iranian who was under a final deportation order. Homeland Security says it is stepping up efforts to locate and arrest suspected terrorists and violent extremists who entered the U.S. illegally or via flawed parole programs. Authorities stress these arrests highlight growing national security concerns tied to irregular migration and foreign militant networks. Avoids impeachment again. House votes down efforts over Iran strikes without approval. Details coming up next. As many as 128 House Democrats joined all present Republicans on Tuesday to block an impeachment resolution against President Donald Trump. The resolution, led by Texas Democrat Al Green, accused Trump of abusing presidential power by launching attacks on Iranian nuclear sites earlier this month without congressional approval. The motion to table the resolution passed 344 to 79. Green warned Trump's actions violated the War Powers Clause and posed a threat to American democracy. He cited Trump's history of bypassing Congress and inciting authoritarianism. The move drew backlash from progressive groups who criticized Democratic leaders like Hakeem Jeffries for failing to challenge Trump's military decisions. Constitutional lawyer John Bonifaz praised the 79 Democrats who opposed the tabling, saying others had ignored their oath. The vote comes amid growing pressure on lawmakers to reassert congressional authority over war powers and hold Trump accountable. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, has filed a federal lawsuit against Meta, accusing the tech giant of religious discrimination. CAIR claims Meta unlawfully fired Muhammad Faris Majid, a Muslim employee of Indian origin, for expressing pro-Palestine and anti-genocide views rooted in his faith. The suit alleges that Meta violated civil rights laws by punishing Majid for religious expression while allowing others to discuss topics like Ukraine and Black Lives Matter. Majid was hired in 2018. He says he felt a religious duty to speak about Gaza both at work and on social media. Instead of dialogue, he faced reprimands, warnings, and threats. CAIR is seeking an injunction to stop further discrimination, religious sensitivity training for Meta managers, and monetary damages. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court in Texas. Meta has not responded publicly to the case. An Israeli airstrike killed at least 29 Palestinians and injured many others near an aid distribution point. The strike took place along Salah al-Din Street, south of the Netzarim corridor in central Gaza, according to local health authorities. Families later gathered at Khan Yunis's Nasser Medical Complex to retrieve the bodies of their loved ones and held funeral prayers. Rejecting international calls for a ceasefire, Israel has killed over 64,000 Palestinians since it began its genocide in the region in October 2023, according to the British medical journal The Lancet. Last November, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. Israel also faces a genocide case at the International Court of Justice for its war on the enclave. The Palestinian Ministry of Education says Israeli attacks have killed 16,802 students and injured more than 26,000 since October 7, 2023. Most victims are in Gaza, where 15,553 pre-university students were killed and 23,411 were injured. In the West Bank, 103 students were killed and 691 injured. University casualties include 1,111 students killed in Gaza and 35 in the West Bank. 100 more have been detained. At least 926 education staff also have been killed, mostly in Gaza, with thousands injured or arrested. Israel has destroyed or severely damaged more than 500 schools and over 60 university buildings in Gaza. UN-run schools were also bombed. 8 West Bank universities were raided and 152 schools were damaged. The ministry noted that Gaza's students have again missed their high school exams due to the genocide, marking the second consecutive year of disruption. UN and rights groups call this a direct attack on education. African leaders have urged the United States to move away from its aid-based approach and focus on private investment. They were speaking at the U.S.-Africa Business Summit in Luanda, the capital of Angola. Angolan President João Lourenço said Africa no longer is a passive recipient, but a region ripe for innovation. He stressed the need to replace the logic of aid with the logic of ambition. The president of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, said the era of aid dependency is over. Leaders also called for fairer financial terms from global lenders like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. The summit, themed Paths to Prosperity, brought together 2,700 U.S. and African delegates. Organized by the Corporation Council on Africa, the event aims to boost private sector partnership and redefine U.S.-Africa relations through investment, not charity. A bipartisan group of U.S. senators is urging swift action against China's forced labor transfers of Uyghur Muslims. In a letter to the Forced Labor Enforcement Task Force, Senator Pete Ricketts, Jeff Merkley, and Chris Coons were among those calling for tougher enforcement of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. A joint investigation by New York Times, Der Spiegel, and the Bureau of Investigative Journalism found thousands of Uyghurs being moved to factories outside Chinese-occupied eastern Turkestan, which China calls Xinjiang. Lawmakers say these transfers help China evade U.S. laws banning products made with forced labor. The senators are pushing to expand the list of banned Chinese companies and want a full briefing by July 18th. The current entity list includes 144 companies, but senators say that's not enough to block China's labor schemes. A key COVID-19 protein causes the immune system to attack healthy cells, according to a new study. The nucleocapsid protein can move from infected to uninfected cells, bind to their surface, and trick the immune system into marking them for destruction. This misdirected response may be behind severe COVID-19 symptoms and long COVID. But there is good news. Enoxaparin, a widely used blood thinner, can block this harmful process. It prevents the viral protein from latching onto cells, stopping the immune system from launching a mistaken attack. The findings published in Cell Reports open a promising path for treating COVID-related complications. Researchers use lab-grown cells, advanced imaging, and patient samples to track how the protein behaves and how enoxaparin disrupts it. Experts say the discovery could lead to better therapies not just for COVID-19, but also for other viruses that trigger similar immune reactions. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.